So, today we're going to do something a little different. We're diving into the history of a classic American suburb. But our guide? It's not some history book. Nope. It's the website of a local plumber. I know what you're thinking. A plumber's website? Really? I mean, you go there looking for an emergency number, maybe a list of services. But tucked away between pages on pipe repair, there's this incredible, detailed history of the entire city. So the big question is, what can a plumber actually teach us about history? Well, let's find out. Okay, so let's start right where most of us end up when we call a plumber, with the problem, a really common, really modern one. You know the feeling, right? That gurgling sound coming from the kitchen sink, the water in the shower that just won't go down. It's that sinking feeling when you realize all that complex stuff hidden under the floorboards and behind the walls isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And of course, for these modern headaches, we have some seriously high-tech solutions. You see these wild terms on their website like hydrojetting. Think of it as pressure washing the inside of your pipes. Or power rodding, which is basically a super-powered snake for really stubborn clogs. This is all 21st century tech. But to really get why these tools are so important, especially in this city, we have to rewind the clock way back. All right, let's jump in our time machine. We're going way past the invention of modern pipes, all the way back to where this city's story even begins. So the whole story really kicks off with the name itself, Des Plaines. It's not just some random name someone picked. It's actually a description. Turns out, French explorers back in the 1600s named the local river La Rivière des Plaines, the Plains River, because the trees looked like the ones back home. So right from the get-go, this place has been all about its river. And this timeline, it basically shows you the two things that literally built this town, the river and the railroad. First, you get a steam-powered mill popping up to chop wood for the new railroad ties. Then, boom, the train station gets its official name, Des Plaines. And just like that, by 1869, you've got a proper village, born right where nature and new technology collided. Okay, so we go from this tiny little village to an absolute explosion of growth in the 20th century. And this expansion, it would totally reshape the city, bringing some incredible highs and some really devastating lows. The big catalyst? It was that post-World War II boom. When O'Hare Airport opened right next door, it was like a light switch flipped. Des Plaines went from a sleepy little town to a major, bustling suburb almost overnight. And then, in 1955, something happened that basically defined this new suburban age. The very first franchise McDonald's, that McDonald's, opened its doors right here. A true icon of American culture born in Des Plaines. But, being right next to the airport, it also brought heartbreak. In 1979, this number, 273, was etched into the city's memory. That's how many people were lost when American Airlines Flight 191 went down just after takeoff, a really tragic moment in the city's history. Then, fast forward a few decades to 2022, and another, just mind-blowing number hits the headlines. $1.34 billion. That was the prize for the third biggest lottery ticket in American history. And guess where it was sold? At a gas station right there in Des Plaines. Crazy, right? So you just step back and look at the journey. It's incredible. It went from being just a tiny little railroad stop called Rand for a handful of farmers to a full-blown city of over 60,000 people. You've got corporate HQs, a huge casino, a really rich and complicated story. And this is where it all comes back around to our plumber. See, all that history, that explosive growth, it has a direct impact on the stuff you can't see. It's all recorded in the city's bones, in its infrastructure, and right down to the pipes under your house. Remember that phrase from the plumber site, rapid growth? That is the absolute key here. Think about it. When you build that many houses, that many businesses, that fast, what happens to the pipes that were already there? They get put under incredible strain. The original system was built for a small town, and suddenly it had to support a massive modern city. So now, when you look at all the steps for a plumber's visit, the diagnosis, the estimate, sneaking the clog, maybe even bringing out the hydrojet, it makes so much more sense. It's not just about one little clog. It's about figuring out a really complex system, one that's been added to and patched up for decades. Every one of these steps is basically managing history. And that's why all that practical advice you see on their site is so important. Checking for licenses, getting upfront pricing. It's not just consumer tips. It's about taking care of your little piece of this much bigger, much older system. You're not just calling a guy to fix a leak. You're hiring an expert who knows how to navigate the history that's literally flowing right under your floor. It really makes you think, doesn't it? The entire story of this city, from a river named by French explorers all the way to a modern suburb, is literally hidden in its pipes. Which leads to one last question for you to think about. What forgotten history is flowing just beneath your own home?